there's a strange truth about Final Fantasy. For all the iconic protagonists this series has given us, you got Cloud, Squall, Zidane, Titus. There are times when the spotlight kinda seems to land on somebody else, a side character. Someone who wasn't meant to carry the entire weight of the story, and yet they steal it anyway. Today I want to talk about a few of those characters, the ones who, for many fans, were more compelling, more layered, and even more beloved than the so-called heroes they traveled beside. First, we have Vivi. If Final Fantasy IX is a love letter to the series' past, Vivi is its emotional soul. A small black mage with a wide hat and glowing yellow eyes, Vivi at first feels like a throwback to the classic design of Final Fantasy I. But very quickly we realize he's much more than that. Vivi's journey is about mortality, about identity, what it means to exist when your very creation was manufactured. Unlike Zidane, who embodies a playful, swashbuckling optimism, Vivi forces us to confront the heaviest questions of the game's story. Why am I alive? How long do I have, and what do I do with the time I've been given? It's no exaggeration to say Vivi overshadows Zidane as the emotional anchor of Final Fantasy IX. He isn't just a party member, he's the beating heart of the narrative. And long after the credits roll, it's Vivi's quiet courage, his struggle, and his acceptance that players remember the most. And just so you know, I think Zidane gets a lot of unnecessary hate as a protagonist, but even so, Vivi's whole character arc is just better in my opinion. Next is Balthier and Fran. Final Fantasy XII has an ensemble cast, but let's be honest, Vaughn is hardly anyone's favorite protagonist. He was a last-minute insertion by Square Enix, designed to give younger players something to latch onto. I guess that's their thinking. But when you look at who actually commands the screen, the answer is clear. It's Balthier and Fran, anybody but Penelo and Vaughn. And yes, I do package them as one complete entity because it's my video and yeah, I'm allowed to. Balthier is smooth, witty, and roguishly charming. A sky pirate who has more charisma and a single smirk than Vaughn kind of manages across the entire game. He even goes as far as to call himself the leading man, a wink to the audience that he knows exactly whose story this should be. And then there's Fran, mysterious, otherworldly, other things, and deeply tied to Ivalice's lore. Fran doesn't just serve as Balthier's partner, she adds depth and culture to the world itself. Together, the two of them feel less like supporting characters and more like the beating narrative core of 12. They're kind of the ones we want to follow, the ones who breathe life into every scene they touch. Their charisma is magnetic. Now, here's my disclaimer. I actually liked playing as Vaughn in 12. Like in battle, I liked playing as him because he was my blank slate that I could kind of turn into anything I wanted. And I actually liked him a lot as far as the story goes. I liked him a lot in the very beginning of the game. I'm talking like the very beginning, when you were like more or less confined to just being in Rabanastre. But once you started venturing out and the scope of the story expanded, that's when Vaughn's character just nosedived off a cliff, basically. And then we have the GOAT side character, Laguna. So Squall is famously stoic. He broods, he isolates himself, he struggles with vulnerability, as we all do. But then, like a flash of light breaking through the gloom, we meet Laguna, who's optimistic and charismatic, even clumsy at times, which is very endearing. Laguna feels like the inverse of Squall in every way. Through the game's dream sequences, we get to live pieces of his life. He's a soldier with big dreams, a man who struggles with his own failures, a would-be journalist swept along by fate. Laguna isn't just comic relief or a detour from the main narrative. His story is threaded into the very DNA of Final Fantasy VIII. And many players felt something undeniable. If the game made Laguna the protagonist instead of Squall, it might have been stronger for it. Laguna shows us that side characters aren't bound by the same restrictions as the main ones. He doesn't have to fit the mold of the silent brooding hero. He can be messy, funny, and human, and still feel every bit like the real hero of his own tale. Now, Squall isn't a character I dislike at all. I like Squall. But I've seen people not super happy with how he was written. But for me, it's more like... how do I say this? For me, it's more like Laguna is just so likable as a character, rather than Squall being not good as a main character. You know what I mean? It's more like Laguna's just really cool and fun. It's not that Squall is super bad as the main protagonist, if you get what I mean. But if Square were ever going to give a side character their own full-fledged game, I'd want it to be Laguna, and I know a bunch of people who would. Out of any side character in the series, it has to be Laguna. Let me know if you agree though. So we have Laguna, Vivi, Balthier / Fran and Fran. These aren't just great characters. They're proof that Final Fantasy's magic doesn't always live in the protagonist. Sometimes it's these side characters who hold the most humanity, the most heart, the most charm. Maybe that's the beauty of the series, that the worlds are rich enough to make even the secondary characters feel unforgettable. So I'll leave you with this. Who are the Final Fantasy characters you think deserve the spotlight more than the main cast? Was it Auron in Final Fantasy X, who is carrying the weight of the past? Celeste in Final Fantasy VI, whose story is arguably greater and eclipses Terra's story? Or maybe the Turks in Final Fantasy VII, which I did make a video about how they are the whole reason Final Fantasy story even exists. It literally couldn't have happened without the Turks. Look, when it comes to Vaughn, Squall, and Zidane, I don't think that they're bad main characters. And by they, I just mean Squall and Zidane. It's just sometimes I resonate or kind of relate to a side character or party member more than the main ones. That's all. It's that simple. I hope you all enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Do the subscribe thing. Have an amazing day, and God bless.